All right, let's talk about the Mount Everest of literature, James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. This is a book that's famous for being pretty much unreadable. But what if I told you there's a key, a way to actually unlock what's going on inside?
I mean, just take a look at this sentence. At first glance, it's total nonsense, right? Beautiful? Strangely forbidden? This is the exact kind of thing that makes most of us just, shut the book and walk away.
And you know what? That's totally okay. That feeling of confusion is actually part of the experience Joyce wanted you to have. The book isn't really written in English. You could say it's written in the language of dreams, where puns and history all just get mashed together.
So here's the plan. We're not going to try to tackle all 628 pages.
No way.
Instead, we're going on a little decoding mission. We're going to focus on just one tiny section to figure out the method to all this madness.
Okay, so let's dive in. The very first step to understanding any part of Finnegans Wake is to find the simple story that's buried deep under all those complicated words. And for our passage, that story is, believe it or not, surprisingly simple.
So picture this. The scene is a battlefield, but all the fighting has stopped. It's quiet, maybe even a little peaceful. There's an emperor, a guy named Wellington, and he's defeated, lying under his shield. All the soldiers have gone home.
And into this quiet scene steps our unlikely hero, a small, timid hen. She only comes out after all the noise of the battle is over. Joyce calls her a gnarlybird and a peacefugle, which is basically his little pun on a peace bird.
And what's her job? Well, she's a scavenger. She pecks around, gathering up what the book calls spoiled goods, all the junk that history left behind. We're talking spent cartridges, old boots, bones, keys. She is literally collecting the garbage of the past. So far, so simple, right? A hen on a battlefield. But now, let's look at the language itself.
This is where the magic, and let's be honest, the difficulty of the book really kicks in. In Finnegans Wake, a word is almost never just one thing. Joyce builds this whole new language using a very specific tool.
And this right here is the secret weapon, the portmanteau. He smashes multiple words, multiple ideas into a single new one. Think of it like cramming as much meaning as possible into a tiny piece of linguistic luggage.
Let's look at a real example from our passage. Joyce says the defeated emperor is lying under his 7 Rothschilds. Okay, so what is that? Well, that single word contains a warrior's anger, or wrath, the shield he's physically lying under, and a reference to the famous Rothschild banking family. 3 ideas in one word.
Or get this one. He writes, "It's the armistice tonight." In that one little phrase, he fuses Armistice Day at the end of a massive war with the natural cycle of ocean tides and the simple fact that it's happening tonight. History, nature, and the present moment all crammed together.
He even creates words that contain their own opposites. The word militopukos is built from the Esperanto words for war and peace. So in the same breath he's announcing a truce, he's also reminding us of the war that just ended. Every single word is like a little Russian doll of meaning.
So you see, these puns aren't just Joyce being clever for the sake of it. They're actually little time capsules, and they're loaded with very specific historical events.
Remember Rothschilds? Well, that's not just some random pun. It points us directly to the Battle of Waterloo. There's this famous legend, probably not true, but famous, that Nathan Rothschild used carrier pigeons to get the news of the British victory before anyone else, which let him make an absolute fortune on the stock market. Joyce packs that entire story into just one word.
The book also gives us these really bizarre descriptions. They're meant to be these eternal archetypes that Joyce believed would just never disappear from history. A powerful man, an old woman, and so on. They're all pieces of a pattern he thinks just keeps repeating.
Now, what's really wild is how the book organizes these events. It lists them out like they're in a history book, the Annals of Dublin. But just look at the dates. Time is completely scrambled. We start in 1132, then we jump back to 566, and then we leap forward to 1132 again. For Joyce, history isn't a straight line, it's a loop.
And that looping timeline brings us to a really important question. Why that year? What is so special about 1132?
Well, for Joyce, an Irishman, 1132 was a year of destiny for his country. It was the year an Irish king named Dermot McMurrough started a chain of events that would directly lead to the Norman invasion of Ireland. It's this foundational moment of conquest and betrayal in Irish history.
So, all of this brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why write a book like this? Why pack every single line with these looping, pun-filled histories? What is Joyce trying to say about time and history itself?
And the answer, the master key to the entire book, lies with an 18th century Italian philosopher named Giambattista Vico. Vico had this theory that history doesn't just progress in a straight line from bad to good. No, he argued it moves in great, big, repeating cycles.
Vico's model has 4 stages. History starts in a mythical age of gods. Then it moves to an age of heroes full of warriors. Then comes the age of men, which is democratic but also corrupt. And finally, society collapses. That's the ricorso, the return. And the whole cycle just begins all over again.
And suddenly our little hen makes perfect sense. She isn't just a bird, she is a symbol of Vico's cycle. She's picking through the ruins of one finished age, the battlefield, and she's collecting the fragments, the litter of the past, that will become the raw material for the next cycle of history.
And that, right there, is the grand design of the whole book. Finnegans Wake is structured to be a perfect loop. The very last sentence of the book flows seamlessly back into the very first one. Joyce is showing us, not just telling us, that every end is a new beginning. The Battle of Waterloo echoes the Trojan War, which echoes a family squabble, on forever. So the secret, the question Joyce leaves us with is this: is all of human history just one single story, told again and again?